Hello, I'm Jacqueline Holstead, and you are listening to On Point Conversations. In this podcast series, we share creative marketing, content, and branding strategies that help your business successfully navigate the new normal marketing environment. In today's podcast, I'm going to be talking about a very age-old marketing tool or marketing tactic, which is called fear marketing. Now, at the first glance, it sounds horrible to say fear marketing, but fear marketing has been used for years. And today I want to talk about how to ethically use fear marketing. First of all, I was prompted to do this because I heard a politician just recently. We've had some elections here. And I heard a politician, she is not in my district, so I don't have a real clue what she does or how she does it. But she said, and this is a quote, "Instilling fear to control behavior is un-American." Now, she was referring to the COVID-19 vaccination and those ads and that type of information that's going on in all different types of media. But in reality, instilling fear has long been a way of marketing to consumers to have them understand why the product that the company or the service is very important to them. I'm going to just read you something that Edward Murrow wrote. He's a longtime broadcast journalist, very well known. And his quote was, "No one can terrorize a whole nation unless we are all his accomplices." And then in his particular article, and I'm going to quote now for a few minutes, he said, America, and this was, by the way, written before the pandemic and before the vaccinations. This was in like 2018. He wrote, "America is in the midst of an epidemic of historic proportions. This plague on our nation, one that has been spreading like wildfire, is a potent mix of fear coupled with unhealthy doses of paranoia and intolerance. Tragic hallmarks of the post-9/11 America in which we live. Everywhere you turn, those on both the left and the right wings are fomenting distrust and division. You can't escape it. We're being fed a constant diet of fear. Fear of terrorists, fear of illegal immigrants, fear of people who are too religious, fear of people who are not religious enough, fear of Muslims, fear of extremists, fear of the government, fear of those who fear the government," and that list goes on and on and on, unquote. So for those of you who are familiar with marketing approaches, fear-based marketing has been around for a very long time. In fact, I have some old magazines that I got from my parents, and then I purchased some things at some of the older antique stores, and there's a lot of fear in there. In fact, one of the newest Listerine or toothpaste ads talking about bad breath. People didn't even really realize they had bad breath till those ads started appearing. And then it was, oh, here's what's going to take care of your bad breath, and turning people away. So this has been going on since the beginning of advertising and marketing. Basically, fear-based marketing can be described as it's a use of consumers' fears to motivate them to purchase a product or contribute to a cause or get your service. So the consumer is really apprising the product in light of their own fear of the consequences of not buying your product or getting your service. There are ways to ethically use fear, though. And maybe fear can transform more towards need than talking about it as fear. But how do we do this ethically? Now, if you want to, and you're so inclined, you can go back to a book called Building Communication Theory. It's a guide for marketing. It's been around for a long time. And they have a 4-step process called the fear appeal in their book. Let's talk about those steps for now. The first step is make a reader know they're vulnerable to a threat. Now, I would say you might want to add things like statistics. Maybe, I just read this recently, 43% of all cyber attacks are aimed at small businesses. Now, as a small business, as an entrepreneur, in my case, that perks my ears. 43% of cyber attacks are geared towards that area and those businesses. So you have a vulnerable, you have a threat, but you're stacking it up with an actual statistics and not made up, but something you find that you can substantiate. Step 2 is let then the reader know that since they're vulnerable, they really should take action to reduce their vulnerability. So when I found that particular statistics, and there were other statistics with it, I looked at ways to make my business less vulnerable to cybersecurity issues. So I might look at actions. I did some outsourcing of some of my IT and security. I use several hard drives to back up all my systems. I manage my passwords with a certain password program. There are many out there, so I won't mention who with the one I'm using, but I've done things in order to make my business and my clients more secure. Step 3, let your consumers know about the specific action they can take to protect themselves from the risk. Now, this is where your company, what you offer, or your service comes into play. What do you offer that is going to either eliminate or bring down this vulnerability that someone might have? Now, these can go into all kinds of different needs and fears and things like that, but I'm going to talk about the cybersecurity today, and then I'll add some things towards a little bit later in this podcast about some other things that you might look at. And then step 4, challenge people to take this specific action. This is your call to action. It's something that all your communication should really have, and it's either call us today if you're some kind of a security IT group, security group. Maybe you offer a certain kind of hard drive that's very secure. So, send in today, call us today. Somehow there's an ending for it that your company offers. And this is also the call to action, something you want them to do now to take care of this threat. I really like this process because it gives a really more direct yet kind of a sensitive way of naming a fear. And as I also said, it can be looked at as a need, and then offering your own path that you offer as a company toward safety and stability so people don't have to worry about it. So this path takes more into account the safety and stability, and it's good for marketers. We want to provide information to our consumers about what problems we solve. And whether that's a fear, you look at it as a fear, or whether it's a need, or whatever it is, we're trying to solve a problem and we're driving our messaging towards that. So our consumers see us as a need. Now, some of those needs might more include something that relates to your own self-image. There are things that are not as hard evidence. They're more something that's less ability to put your numbers around it and things like that. For example, if you have something where you're helping people lose weight, it's a little bit harder to put together. You can talk about the things that happen when you're overweight, diabetes and these things that can happen to your body. But when this case, I want to stick to something that's more related to security purposes. And what we're doing as marketers too is we don't want to make people so afraid that they won't do anything. What we want to do is give them a reason to look at our company, to either call us, to check our product out, to look at it. And even though it's called fear-based marketing, it doesn't have to be something where people are struck into terror and something that they get really nervous about. So you want to treat fear, and I just read this someplace like salt. So you don't want to use too much. And so you don't want to use too many warnings about this imminent danger and doom, because that's going to turn people off. But you want to add it as flavoring so people get the idea of why they were even going to look at your company. And as in salt, some people, I use very little salt. So when I go to a restaurant or go out to eat, and if someone's been salting the dish that I have, it might appear way more salty to me than someone who's used to a lot of salt in their diet. So salt is one of those things, and fear is one of those things that you gauge what your own audience is interested in or is not going to be interested in, and how much you actually do to help alleviate something, some need of theirs or some fear of theirs. So if you consider this entire part of your messaging strategy, this is just one part, by the way, of your messaging strategies. This is just a part of it, and there's all kinds of other messaging strategies with regards to need and to what you do to fulfill and how do you fulfill it. So what this actually marketing strategy looks like for you is going to be very different because it's going to depend on what business you're doing. What's really the cost of not doing business with you? Is there something where customers are going to lose money? Is there a health risk? Are there costs associated with not doing it, as I just said? Are there opportunity costs? Does it relate to your quality of life is going to go down if you don't do it? Your social standing? So there's all kinds of things, and you really need to look at your own company. And as I said again, even though we're talking about a fear-based marketing, I would look at it as, what are you going to do that's going to help these people, because you're going to feel better about it, and look at ways to get actual hard numbers and statistics in order to show what the consumer might be facing if they don't use your particular product or services. And I would say too that this is only part of your messaging strategy. You want to look at all the things that you do. So while you're doing this and you're looking at these needs and these fears, look at also other things that you can do within your marketing strategy that gets your message across. So today I really talked again about fear-based marketing, kind of a scary word, but it's true. There is such a thing, and it's also such a type of marketing tool. But again, you can use it ethically, and you can use it in a way that provides more information about what your product or service does to solve someone else's problems. This can extend to a yoga studio, fitness studio, to someone who's teaching dance, because there are all kinds of reasons that this is an important part of what you want to do in your life. So I leave you with that. If you want any more information on this or my other blog posts and podcasts, please feel free to follow me at On Point Conversations. You can access those on my website, which is onpointthinking.com. You can also access them at where you find your podcast, which might be Spotify, Apple, Google, a variety of other platforms such as that. In addition, I do encourage you to go to my website at onpointthinking.com and go to the contact page and let me know what kinds of things you're interested in. What would you like me to talk about? I have lots of years of experience in marketing, and I do look at those and do like to look at what people are talking about or interested in. And I do get my topics, by the way, from working with clients and seeing what they're particularly interested in and what they're particularly thinking about at this point. I look forward to talking to you and just hope you have a really great day. Thank you for listening, and I invite you to join me next week as we talk more about specific actions you can take to reach your own business goals. You can find my library of other inspiring podcasts like this one at onpointthinking.com. Again, thank you for listening. This is Jacqueline Holstead at On Point Conversations.